Selim took over as CEO of Middleby in 2000. The stock was at a split-adjusted price of $1 a share. Today it's at 117. So it's up 117 times in value in 16 plus years. That's about 33% a year versus the market's return of about 2.5 percentage points per year. So it's been an incredible run, but there's been a lot of transformations for you, Selim, through those years. But first, I'd like you to just talk about what Middleby was doing when you arrived in 2000 and how the company has changed now 16 years later.
Thank you. When I joined Middleby, Middleby was a commodity Me Too type of company. We do cooking equipment, industrial cooking equipment. It was roughly a $40 million company, losing money every year. I was talking to John last night, and I said to him, it's interesting when you have a company that had no cash. We were churning basically our customer base. Every year, a third of our customer would desert us. A third of our employees would leave, and we would never ship an order on time. So I joined the company, and today, we've become the largest in the field, in the world. So we're roughly $2.5 billion in sales. We have 74 brands, and we're sold in over 100 countries. We have 48 manufacturing facilities globally, 26 in the US, 22 overseas, Italy, Germany, Denmark, India, China, Brazil, Philippines, 7,800 employees worldwide. And what's fascinating is the reaction of Main Street and Wall Street. On Wall Street, we've been highly liked. On Main Street, it's even better. People like buying our product. We do well, and we've never lost a customer. So there haven't been a customer in the last 16 years who fired us. So it's been a great run.
So during that time, philanthropy has been a major thread in your work, but you've transformed yourself, the company, your objectives and your priorities. Maybe talk a little bit about how the philanthropic side of your work and work with Middleby has played out too.
Well, first of all, I've always been involved with charities. So I'm a guy who wrote a lot of checks. I wrote checks for scholarships. I helped a lot of people. But I was always looking for doing something bigger. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. And that helped me think about who I want to be as a leader. What type of a leader I want to be. And that's what most probably created the company as a purpose. So today, we have 2% turnover since the last 15 years. People don't leave us. And the reason is because we've had a purpose in the way we do business. So in year 2000, and remember we talked about that, in year 2000, I challenged our team. We were a tiny company at the time. I said, what would we do to change the world, to impact the world? And we settled in year 2000 on energy-saving appliances. There were only 2 companies in the world that were talking about energy-saving appliances. One was Toyota, and they were just launching the Prius. And we launched all our appliances were highly energy efficient. So we redesigned all our product to become energy efficient. And what was interesting, it was the same year that General Motors bought the Hummer. You remember the Hummer, 9 miles per gallon. And people were buying it like popcorns. So what happened is everybody told me, Selim, America is not interested in energy efficiency. They want the biggest burner. They want the biggest flame you can get on your cookers. And we stuck with it. And we basically, by 2005, we were leading the energy efficiency in appliances. Then, in 2006, I read an article. And it was an article in Fortune about T. Boone Pickens. And he said something that water will be the next oil. How many of you have seen that article? It was somewhere, you remember that, okay? So I was on a plane, I cut this article, I went back to my company, I said, how much water our equipment basically uses? They said tons. Our steamers, our boilers, our refrigerators, they all use a lot of water. So then we started introducing waterless steamers, water wells that use no water, so we steam without water. So far, we save our customer. Last year, we saved our customer 4 billion gallons of water. So thank you. This has been a huge change for us. And then I'll talk about philanthropy, but specifically how I drove my charity into philanthropy. I'll go into details into that. What is the future for Middleby? Interesting enough, nobody tells me what the future is. No customer will tell me what they want. They can tell you tweak this and tweak that. So 2 years ago, I decided to go into robotics. And not because I was smart, but there was something happening in my company. Every factory that I had a robotic machine, a robot. They happened to be all made out in Germany or in Japan. They were caged, they were efficient, but they were caged. They were expensive. And I said, how come there is not a single American company that I can buy $300,000 robotic from? So when we basically opened our new factory in Dallas with TurboChef, we ended up buying 7 robotics, and they were all Japanese. So I said, let's look at creating robots that work in the United States. So ultimately, we decided to get into robots, and then we changed from robot to cobot. I wanted to change. I said, if I'm going to disrupt, let's disrupt the robotics differently. So we called them cobots. So today, it's reality. You can buy a cobot from Middleby. It is a collaborative robot. It's not caged. It basically can pick fries, flip burgers, pour drinks, and it's less than $50,000. And you don't have to cage that robot. Disney just ordered the first ones. Amazon just ordered for us for their cafeteria a bunch of them. So we changed that business, and now we're doing 3D food printing. And so that's the future for Middleby.
Can you talk about how you assemble that vision? I mean, you couldn't have started or thought 12 years ago, we'll be in robotics. One of the first steps you took in 2000 was to actually cut the product line significantly because the business was spread across a number of different categories and was very mediocre in all of them. So you narrowed the focus, you became incredibly focused, but as you've grown, you've expanded your vision, and I'm wondering how you made those decisions, what were the factors that caused you to think that way, and how easy or difficult was it to convince your team, your direct reports, or the company that this is the next mountain that we need to take?
So those are tough questions because literally, we've reinvented the company 6 times. Some of them were because we needed to reinvent when the company wasn't as good. Today, we're reinventing, so I'll talk about our new reinvention. So let's talk about the last one. How did we get the robot? We decided to go from product to platform. We said, how can we help people come from product to platform? So we created a platform that answered the need of labor savings, answered the need of people that didn't want to do the jobs of flipping burgers. You can't pay somebody $8 to flip burger at 2 in the morning. So we said, okay, let's do that. However, Tom, the most difficult thing that I face today is something unique. We are having the best year, record year for Middleby this year, record. We'll have the highest sales, the higher profits ever. However, I am asking the company to reinvent itself. So on the 28th and 29th of October, all my presidents coming from all over the world, I'm asking them to reinvent themselves. That's difficult when you have the best year ever. So I went on the internet and looked at companies that are reinventing themselves. What do you get? Every company reinventing themselves is under duress. Their sales are slumped or they stalled. Their profits are down. Their customers are deserting them because a competitor came. There was only 2 companies that I found that were reinventing themselves at the height of their success. One of them happened to be a restaurant in Chicago called Alinea. How many of you know Alinea? Great. Alinea just was named number 3 restaurant in the world from number 13 last year. They just got the 3-star Michelin. They had the record year in profits ever. People are flocking to that restaurant, and they decided to basically reinvent themselves. So I went and embedded myself 3 weeks with the chef and the owner. And I asked them, why are you doing this? Interesting question. You're on the top of the game, and now you're saying, everything I've done, I'm going to close the restaurant, spend the next 3 months reshaping the restaurant. So they told me they're going to keep 3 things. They're going to keep the location, they're going to keep the same team, they're going to keep the same concept. They're not going to go from fine dining to fast casual. But the most interesting thing they told me was they're not going to keep a single item from the menu on the next menu. I said, wait a minute. Now I'm confused. You have bestsellers on your items. People come to eat some great, great food, and you know what they are? They said, Selim, we're going to not allow a single item to basically translate from the old Alinea to the new one. It triggered my mind. The other company is a company called Warby Parker. How many of you are familiar with it? Oh my God, everybody knows it. So I went and met with those guys. So those guys are different than Alinea. They basically went and competed against a company who owns the eyewear in the world. Luxottica. 80% market share. Not only they own the manufacturing, the distribution, Sunglass Hut, basically the retail, and then they own the insurance, iMed. And they decided to take it on. And I went and embedded myself in them. And I saw the reinvention of what they've done. So now I'm taking those 2 examples and taking to my people on the 28 and 29. We're reinventing ourselves along Alinea and Warby Parker on the height of our company. Robotics, 3D printing, highest sales possible. In the eyes of the customer, we can't do wrong, and now I'm reinventing. It's a tough 2 days meeting, imagine.
One of the things we've talked about is the difference between a marketing company and a product company.
Yes.
A company that does a great job of convincing the world to buy once versus the company that attempts to never lose a customer. And I know that one of your leadership principles at Middleby is we want 100% customer retention. For all of us as leaders of our organizations to think 100% customer retention, what sort of behaviors does that change inside of the organization when you set that as a target? And how realistic of a target is it for a variety of companies?
Well, it's an easy target. If you select the customers that likes you and you like them. If they like you, and you like them, it's easy to do business. So early on the onset, I decided not to do business with people that do not meet our value system. Early on, the largest restaurant chain in the world and I did not get along. Why? Because they were all about price and all about taking your innovation and our IP and saying, I have the right to become mine. I said, then you're not my customer and I will not do business with you. So from that perspective, I say we have found the customers that respect us, that find our solution and they're willing to pay for it. The other thing that made it amazing, how we did that, is I adopted 2 principles. I adopted the principle of Costco. So I had gone to Costco, and I'm sure, John, you do that. I think at Whole Foods, you have the same philosophy because I'm a customer of yours. You can return anything at Whole Foods. I know that because I've returned half a chocolate bar because I didn't like it. And they took it. Don't change that principle. I know you would not, but I returned that. So Costco was something that I was in line returning stuff at Costco. And a lady was coming in returning flowers. And I was listening to the lady. The lady said, I buy flowers every 2 weeks. Those flowers did not last 2 weeks. I'm returning them. And Costco took those. So that was 20 years ago. So I adopted the no quibble warranty. And today, for 1 year, any product you buy from me, it's been there since 1999. Any product. And remember, I'm not talking about flowers. I'm not talking about chocolate bar. I'm talking about a complete kitchen. If it doesn't work to your principle, we take it back. For any reason, I take it back. Number 2, we are open on weekends. So our customers are all working on weekends. So our business is open on weekends, meaning Saturday, Sunday, Mother's Days, Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, we're opening business. We are aligned ourselves with our customers.
I want to talk about the internal culture at Middleby. So we've talked about the customer and your connection, your service to customers, and your principles and your values. How do those values translate internally? What does it feel like and mean to work at Middleby? Do you have a mission statement, and do you have core values, and how do you hold yourself and your organization accountable to them?
Tom, we do not have a mission statement. So I don't have a mission statement because I don't sit tight. Our people don't sit in meetings to create one. That's simple. As you can see, there are no chairs here. I can't sit down. I am a high ADD. I know he is, so he accepted the challenge. Said, Selim, no chairs. I can't sit down for meetings. I am highly dyslexic. I am extreme dyslexic. I have extreme dyslexia, so I cannot read much. I cannot sit much. So my organization reshaped itself by 3 things. Number 1, they don't send me emails, very little emails, no report and no meetings. That's fantastic. Number 2, the second thing we do, since I cannot deal with too many reporting, I'm a bad manager. I'm a great thinker, bad manager. So I tell everybody, I'm not a great manager. I don't manage, I think. So what happens is I could not have layers. So when Middleby was $40 million in sales, and we talked about that, Tom, we had several layers of management between me and when I took over, between me and the lowest employee, we had 7 layers of management. How many do you think we have today? 3. Between the shop floor assembler or the receptionist and me, there are 3. It makes it a fantastic free-flowing organization. No supervision. Everybody knows what they do. Number 3 is the incentive. I am high on incentive. That was a big fight when I was the board because we're public. So originally, the board did not want to give significant amount of shares. They wanted, and then when they agreed to give share deep in the organization, they wanted options. So I went on the road show, and that was in 2003, and I convinced the shareholders that options are not good for the company. Why options aren't good for the company? How many of you have, how many of you have publicly traded companies here? Okay. How many of you give options versus share grant? Okay,
you're in trouble.
Okay, so my feeling is, I went back to share grant. Why? Because share grant goes back to $1. So when we hire a new person, they are incentivized to take back versus options. Our shares have gone up tremendously. So people look at it and say, well, if the stock is at 117, well, how far does it go? Now we tell them it's going to go to 1,000, but it's tough when it's gone from $1 to 117, say it's going to get to 1,000. But if they are back to $1 with you, you're going to convince them that, hey, from 1 to 117 you're going to benefit, but then we want you to go from 117 to 1,000 with me. And the incentive have been fantastic. We give profit sharing all the way through the organization, and it's been a fantastic incentive organization. We incentivize very well, and sometimes when ISS says that compensation is too deep, I give my own shares back I give my own compensation back to the employees. So I've known to be cut back my compensation to give it back to my employees. It's created significant loyalty on this. Thank you. Thank you.
I think you have about 3% turnover across, I don't know how many thousands of employees there are at Middleby and all its
8,000.
8,000.
Yeah.
So about 3% turnover in a given year. How about among your direct reports? What's the tenure of your leadership team? How do you select them? How many people report to you? And do you ever sit down and meet with them? Apparently not.
Okay, so no, I do not eat with them, but I do one thing, which is amazing for me. So I'll tell you what I do, which is amazing. But I basically have a lot of direct reports. Since we're a flat organization, I have 74 companies. I have 74 direct reports. But they don't report to me because I don't see them. And they don't see me. So ultimately, they know that we are all EBITDA driven. So they go and know their performance. I've had 0 turnover on my management team. 0. So average tenure with me have been over 15 years. They've stuck with me. Interesting, I have one of them who always, he doesn't send me, he would go on interviews to competitors. He would go through the interview, get an offer, and send it to me. And say, Selim, I am here by choice. At the beginning, I was upset. So he would send me the letter. I said, why did you go to the interview? He said, Selim, if nothing else, I've learned something about the competitor. I said, okay. He said, Selim, they even paid me more than you paid, but I'm still here by choice. And I love that. Today, I love it. He doesn't do it anymore. I said, well, why don't you do it again? It's fun.
How do you ensure, last question about everyone who works at Middleby, how do you ensure that people don't cut corners? If EBITDA is a driving metric around incentives, you look at a variety of other companies and you see a loss of consciousness, short-term focus, trying to take advantage of the ignorance of a customer. It happens in our category in financial services a lot. So how do you make sure that you're really getting a service mentality across the organization while you're trying to meet your targets?
Well, I'm sure from time to time we make mistakes, and we make most probably short-term mistakes. But in general, the philosophy of the company has not been to be short-term. And the reason we've done that is the fact that as a share grant, you're in for they don't vest for 3 years. So as part of our incentive, it's a 3-year program. So in 3 years, we tend to change the company and introduce innovation. It's been fantastic. We've not had that issue. So the culture have not been short-term. We've let a lot of things go. We don't load up the distribution channel. We don't do stupid stuff. We're very honest and transparent with our people. We're transparent with our shareholders. And sometimes we're not popular. Sometimes I give you a great perspective. I have 74 companies. There are 74 decentralized companies. We have 74 back offices. Many shareholders say to me, Selim, why don't you synergize? Why don't you? There's a lot of wasted back office. I said, listen, if you like to invest with us, you should understand that the culture is highly decentralized. If you're about back office company and you want to save the back office, you should not be an investor of Middleby. Why? It's simple. I would rather forego back office for the creativity and the innovation and the leadership that is created by each unit independently. The minute I have back office, which most of my large competitors have, they have centralized engineering, they have centralized accounting, they have centralized HR. I said, we don't want to do this. We're totally independent. We'd like to have those people run, and it's been a great success. For 20 years, it's been a great success. So the biggest thing that happened, so in 2007, I've been speaking at an investor conference, and one investor, he said, Selim, what if you lose a customer? What if a recession occurs? I said, I don't know. I can't tell you because we haven't lost a customer. I can't tell you about a recession because we have done a huge recession. We've gone through most probably a slowdown. 2009 occurs. Fascinating. You should look at Middleby, how we've done. We've done very well. We measured. Why? Because our customers stuck with us. Our employees came on with many, many ways. And during that time, in 2009, I created the national account team. We spent $8 million creating a national account team, and it's been amazing. So if you look at our performance, and I think, Tom, there's a lot of, we're public, you can see that. 2009, 2010, 2009 stayed flat in sales. And then 2010, we started picking up. So the recession barely impacted us.
You have an interesting philosophy about having members of a family working at Middleby. So a mother, a father, a daughter, an uncle, all employed by the same company. Right. Why do you do that?
Well, one, because I believe that it's a great way to do it. So it goes against every principle of HR. So not only I have them all working together, they report to each other. Imagine the pressure of a son working for a father. In fact, Mark Siran, our pizza oven president, has his son working for him. He's harder on his son than on anybody else. And the two work together very, very well. And that defeats every principle of HR. Number two, I like when people leave the company. They never leave, unfortunately. I wish they leave. They come back because it's always they think it's greener on the other side, and they come back and preach and say, wow, Middleby is great. So I sometimes ask people to leave and come back. So we've had one case when somebody left 11 years ago and came back, and he keeps on spreading. He's our high priest. He said, it's a great company to work. Don't even think over there. But so we take people. If you leave, we take you back. If you come back, you're back. So two principles of employment of HRs that we break.
I just want to talk a little bit about your personal journey and then move towards taking some questions. So you mentioned dyslexia as a child. You grew up in Beirut. During your adolescence, the civil war in Lebanon was beginning. So tremendous trauma in the environment that you grew up. Also, tremendous struggle in school because you didn't get a diagnosis, I think, of your dyslexia until you were in business school.
Correct.
So nobody understood why Selim? Are you trying hard? Are you studying enough? Were you getting that pressure? And do you see that thread through your life? Was there doubt about you in those years that feeds your drive today?
Yes, definitely. I'm vulnerable. I'm always felt vulnerable because I was almost lagging in class and I couldn't catch up. I was in a Jesuit school and I studied and I couldn't catch up. And I was vulnerable for two reasons. I was vulnerable because my father, during the Civil War, we were asset rich and cash poor. So in the Civil War, during the Civil War, he lost his job. So my father was my idol. He was an Olympic swimmer, 1948. He still holds the records in swimming in the Middle East. Went to London in 48, competed, and came back. He had no education. He didn't know how to write or read because he was swimming, and there was no swimming pool in Lebanon. So the first time he competed was the first time he sat in a swimming pool. He was swimming in the ocean, in the Mediterranean. So my father is my idol. And then, when the Civil War broke, I had just started my American University of Beirut. I had just been accepted there, and he couldn't pay for my tuition. And one night, I heard my father and my mother talking, and they said, I have $25 left. Selim is in college. I have 2 more children to feed. I don't know what to do. And that resonates to me today. I promised myself I will never be poor again. Ever. And I will help every poor never be in this situation. What happened is, literally, 2 people beside my father reshaped my life. A guy called David Dodge. So David Dodge was a guy in 1900, left United States, went to Lebanon, basically one of the founder of the American University of Beirut, and he created a scholarship. During that time, the scholarship helped me get through college. When I graduated, I never understood why an American who had no affiliation to Lebanon would come and give all his money to people. Even now you're talking 75 years after he was dead, I'm still a recipient of his scholarship. So I thought there would be 2 things. Either he has no family members, makes sense, you give it to somebody, or he was a total idiot. One of the 2, that's my concept. Coming from Lebanon, I said if I had the money I did, I would help my parents first versus helping somebody else, correct? I'm a tribal. Lebanon is a tribal culture. That stuck with me. Then, I came to this country, and I found out that philanthropy is a way of life. Versus Lebanon, where you can help your neighbor and your family member. And I was intrigued by this. In 2001, September 11, 2001, it shook me. It shook me not because of what happened in September 11. It shook me because nobody discriminated against me right after that happened. My name is Selim Bassoul. I look Middle Eastern. I'm a CEO, high target. Not a single American, whether it's customer or a supplier or an employee, came to me and said, your people did this. Why should we support you? I said, what a country. That day, I said, I'm going to become an American, not as a citizen, but as a true spirited American. What happened in my journey? So I started, like every one of you, giving money away to charity. I replenished the David Dodge scholarship. So me and my wife gave back to American University of Beirut to replenish the David Dodge. But then, most important, I decided to keep my antennas open. So I was watching one day on TV the refugees. The refugees, for me, they were coming into Lebanon. I see them coming into Turkey. It stirred them up, but not much. So I went back to Beirut, and I started talking to people about it. And immediately, my father said, Selim, we are good people. Because my aunt was the Mother Teresa of the Middle East. She was a Catholic nun. She was my other influence, who's always helped me think through compassion, think through how to deal with the poor. I've watched her. And my father said, Selim, we are Christian. The Christian has been oppressed by the Syrian government and the Syrian people for 30 years. So if you follow, you'll all follow. Our leaders were jailed. My cousin were killed, trying to stay alive as Christian community against the Syrian onslaught. Here I am telling my father and my Christian friend that I'm going to help the refugees. So I decided to do it. I said, you know what? Americans did not discriminate against me. I will not discriminate. I will tell my father and everybody that that's a good thing to do. Thank you. Thank you. So I drove to the Bekaa Valley. I got on a car and I drove. Let me show you the video. Can we excuse the video, please? Life in Syria was similar to lives in any other country. And people going about their daily jobs in peace, whether tending to their shops or spending time with loved ones or just farming. In 2011, civil war broke out and they were displaced from their homes and they became refugees. I couldn't stay silent. I felt a moral obligation to act. During a recent visit to my native country, Lebanon, I saw the escalating number of refugees and their dire situation.
يعني ونحن مرفوضين لا أمم ولا شيء ما بتجينا مساعدة خالص.
ما بتجي مساعدة أبدا. We need to change impact of life. We need to make lives easier. عندك تقريبا 15 مليون عائلة. 80% نسوان وبنات بروحوا بجيبوا الحطب ويعملوا الأكل راح نهارهم. يعني البنات ما هم بيدرسوا والنسوان ما هم بيعملوا شيء قاعدين جوا.
As I gathered evidence of ways to help, one idea started to take form in my mind. Using our core competency, we should create an oven, a unique oven. So I sat down with my engineering team at Middleby to come up with a fast solution.
So beyond cooking, the appliance can charge a cell phone through heat transfer, not using electricity. The goal is to free the lives of women and girls by allowing them to find time to go to school and find decent employment instead of spending hours searching for wood to cook.
ضل كل نهار لجمع كومة حطب، نزفة حطب بتولع بتطبخ.
Speed matters, but the most important speed is the velocity of goodness. I would say to the world, even if it is in a very small way, rush to be good. Thank you very much. So, I am an old dog. I have gray hair. I couldn't learn new tricks. I'm like you. We've been successful at what we do. So how do I get that oven done? What did they need? So I did exactly what I did at work. So this is why I want to inspire you today. I didn't go back and use an NGO. So what I did is I started visiting the camp the way I do visit kitchens. So this morning I went and visited the kitchen here today, this in the Hyatt. I met Robert Howell, the chef. He told me what he liked, he didn't like. By the way, I made a sale today. So I converted his cookers. They did not like it. So Robert Howell said, Selim, what are you doing here? I'm speaking. He said, you have time to talk to me? I said, yeah, that's more important than speaking. I need to make an order. So I get an order. So what I did is I went and asked those women, what did they need? So we started designing the oven. And it took time. It was not the first iteration. It had to be intuitive. It had to sit on uneven ground. It had to be durable. It has to be light. So if they have to run, they can take it with them. The most important, which is not only, we did not know, we know about cooking, but it had to deliver a light. They needed a light in the tent. So the heat from the oven charges light, and you can put, so we do heat transfer we do electricity from heat transfer. Or if you're not cooking, you can put you can do solar on it. And you can charge your phone. Now, girls can study. They can do something with the tent at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when it's dark. They can't do anything. They have candles. It costs them money. Some of them don't have anything. They sit there. So we did that. Also, we did water purification. Now, the most interesting part is I did a market research. I was there, did the market research, went back to my team, and we delivered this oven. So what is unique about the oven is not the fact that it's an oven that does all of that. It's the fact that it's cost $100. That's the power. That's the power of innovation of Middleby. This is a $100 oven. It does heat transfer. It does water purification. It uses very little wood. It also, the most important, it uses our technology from TurboChef, which has a catalytic converter. That means if you put it inside the tent, you do not get killed from smoke and grease. And it has no tipping. It does not tip. Even if you put it like this, it will not tip because we had an anti-tipping for the pot. This has been very successful. So when I look at that, I'm an old dog. I didn't change anything. We did exactly what we do in a kitchen. If I went to John and asked John, what do I need to do at Whole Foods? Or if I sit with Dan Cathy and I said, what do I need to do at Chick-fil-A? I did the same thing there. Today, I'm changing people's perspective. Now, what is next? The next thing is to go and help in the United States. So our Bassoul Dignity Foundation is now working to help people with second chances. We need to give them life skills. People who did some stupid mistakes, paid for their mistakes, and now can't find a job. So our job is to get them back on life and get them employed. And the way it's going to be done is by placing them in certain restaurants, because that's who I know. I know John Schnatter. I met John. I might ask John to place some. And I'm going to use incentives. So I've been thinking how to do it. The way to do it is simple. If I train those people, so Northwestern, University of Chicago are all lined up for me to give those people life skills. If I place them, let's say at Whole Foods, and for a full year, if they leave with short of a year, I will go and reimburse John the full time that they were there, short of a year. That means they stay there 6 months, and they leave after 6 months, or they get fired after 6 months because they didn't do the job. I will go back and pay Whole Foods the 6 months which they spent on that individual. If they stay a year, I will ask Whole Foods to pay the foundation 30% of their W-2, and I give that 30% to those people for staying for a year. Are you getting the message? Are you getting the idea, not the message, the idea? It's very clear. It's all about incentives. So we've already placed some, and by the end of the year, I have 2 months left. Out of 720, we have 683 still going through. So, thank you.